Jerome told the church why there are 153 fish in the last chapter of John. His answer was this: the ancient naturalists had counted every kind of fish in the world, and the number they arrived at was 153. So the net on that beach holds one of everything, every species, the whole sea, gathered in one haul. It's a beautiful answer. It's been repeated ever since. You've almost certainly heard it. It's in study Bibles and sermons and documentaries, passed along by people who love this text and have no reason to doubt it. And almost nobody who repeats it has opened the book Jerome named. That's the strange part. He named it. He wasn't vague. He pointed at a specific poet and a specific poem and said, "Go look." And here's the thing. It survived. We have it. It's sitting in university libraries right now. You can just go read it. And there's something else. In the same sentence where John gives you the number, he writes down one more detail, one more small thing. And in 2,000 years, nobody has written a commentary trying to crack it. No mathematician, no mystic, nobody. Because it doesn't need cracking. Hold on to that. We're coming back to it, and it's the whole reason I made this. Now, this is the most famous arithmetic puzzle in the Bible. Not a metaphor, not a translation crux, a count. John says the net had 153 fish in it, and the specificity is almost aggressive. He doesn't say many. He doesn't say a great multitude. He doesn't say about 150. He gives you a number you could write on a receipt. And that number has pulled in some of the largest minds the church ever produced. Augustine, Jerome, Cyril of Alexandria, Gregory the Great, not lightweights. People whose work is still being read today. They all solved it. They all got different answers. So if the famous explanations don't survive contact with their own sources, you're left with two options, and both of them are more interesting than the answer you've been handed. Either the number means nothing at all, or it means something nobody has found yet. Start with Jerome, because Jerome is checkable. The claim shows up in his commentary on Ezekiel chapter 47, and Jerome does the thing a good scholar does. He names his source. He says the naturalist poet Oppian of Cilicia, in a work called the Halieutica, counted the kinds of fish. He calls Oppian the most learned poet among the writers on the nature of animals. So, two problems. The first is simple. We have the Halieutica. It's a 5-book Greek poem about fish and fishing at sea, and it does not give a list of fish that adds up to 153. It just doesn't. Scholars have gone through it. The number isn't there. That alone should have ended this. But the second problem is worse. Oppian wrote the Halieutica around 177 to 180 AD. We know that pretty precisely because he addressed it to the Emperor Marcus Aurelius and his son Commodus, who ruled jointly from 176 to 180. It's dated by its own dedication. Now, when was the Gospel of John written? The consensus is somewhere between 90 and 110 AD. Most scholars land on 90 to 100, and there's a real minority, Robinson, Bauckham, N.T. Wright, Daniel Wallace, Van Kooten, who argue for a date before 70 or think the late dating assumptions deserve another look. And I'm not going to referee that fight because I don't need to. Watch what happens. Pick any date at all that anyone has ever proposed for John. The latest one on the table is around 110. Oppian picks up his pen around 177. John could not have been pointing at a book that didn't exist yet. Not on the earliest dating, not on the latest, not on any of them. The most repeated explanation of this number requires the Gospel of John to reference a poem written roughly 70 years after the last plausible date for the Gospel of John. And there's one more thing, and this one's almost gentle. Jerome said 153 kinds of fish in the world. All fish, everywhere, every species that exists on the earth. Somewhere in all that retelling, that became 153 species in the Sea of Galilee, which is a completely different claim, and honestly, a better one. Now the net holds one of every fish in that specific lake, which makes the miracle local and precise and thrilling. Nobody decided to lie. That's not what happened. It just drifted. the way things drift when they get passed hand to hand by people who trust the person who handed it to them. For the record, the Sea of Galilee holds 27 species, 19 native, 8 introduced. That's the Israeli Ministry of Water and Agriculture, counting today. 27 isn't a rebuttal of Jerome. He meant the whole world, and ancient species counts aren't modern ones. It's just a measure of how far a claim travels once nobody's checking the odometer. So why does this keep happening? Not because people are stupid. Some of the smartest human beings who ever lived are on this list. I think it's because we badly want the text to be a puzzle box. A puzzle box rewards you for being clever. It has a hidden layer, and if you're sharp enough, you find the catch, and it opens, and you're in. You're an insider. You saw what other people walked past. And if you've ever wanted the Bible to be that, if you've ever wanted a secret level, something under the surface that would finally make you one of the people who really understands, you're in extraordinary company. Augustine wanted it. Jerome wanted it. I want it. That hunger isn't the problem. What it costs you is. Because we're about to spend 15 minutes doing arithmetic, and there's something sitting in that same sentence, in plain sight, that we are going to walk straight past. Exactly the way everyone else has. The two most repeated explanations of the 153 don't survive a source check. Jerome's fails twice over. Augustine's works only because the seventh thing he needed is in the Latin Bible and isn't in the Hebrew. But the number isn't therefore empty, because there is exactly one proposal on the whole list that you can check yourself with a pencil in about a minute. Augustine. Tractate 122 on the Gospel of John. And I want to give this its full weight because it's not a stupid argument. It's a genuinely beautiful one. He starts with the law. What number stands for the law? His words. For if we determine on the number that should indicate the law, what else can it be but 10? 10 commandments. 10. Then the Spirit. The Spirit, he says, is sevenfold. 10 plus 7 is 17. And then Augustine does the move that makes the whole thing sing. He takes 17 and adds up every number underneath it. 1 plus 2 plus 3, all the way up. His words again. When this number is used for the adding together of every several number it contains, from 1 up to itself, the sum amounts to 153. And it does. It's not a trick. 1 through 17 adds to 153 exactly. That's what mathematicians call the 17th triangular number. Stack 1, then 2, then 3, and keep going. And at 17 rows, you have 153 objects sitting in a perfect triangle. The law and the Spirit added together, and then everything underneath them gathered up, and out comes the number of the fish. I understand completely why that's been repeated ever since. I'd repeat it too. But hang on, where does the 7 come from? You'll hear constantly that the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit are Paul's, that they're in 1 Corinthians. They're not. Open 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and count them. Wisdom, knowledge, faith, healing, miracles, prophecy, discernment of spirits, tongues, interpretation of tongues. That's 9, not 7. And not the traditional 7 either. The 7 gifts come from Isaiah chapter 11, verses 2 and 3. And to be fair to Augustine, he knew that. He cites Isaiah. He also touches 1 Corinthians 12 in the same argument, which is very probably how the misattribution got started. Somebody read Augustine quickly, grabbed the wrong reference, and it's been traveling ever since. So the 7 is Isaiah's. Fine, let's go count Isaiah. Isaiah 11 verse 2. In Hebrew, count with me. Wisdom, that's 1. Understanding, 2. Counsel, 3. Might, 4. Knowledge, 5. Fear of the Lord, 6. 6. The Hebrew has 6. Now here's what happened. The phrase fear of the Lord shows up twice across verses 2 and 3. And when the Septuagint translators rendered this into Greek, they took the first of those 2 occurrences and translated it differently. Not as fear, as a spirit of godliness, piety. The Greek word is eusebeia, and the Latin Vulgate followed them. with pietas, one phrase rendered two different ways. And where the Hebrew had 6, the Greek now has 7. Wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, piety, and fear of the Lord. That's the 7th gift. That's where it comes from, not from the Hebrew, from a translator's decision made centuries before Augustine was born in a different language. So run Augustine's own method on the Hebrew, 10 commandments plus 6, 16. And the 16th triangular number is 136, not 153. The most famous explanation of this number only works if you read Isaiah in Greek. And I need to say something here because it would be cheap not to. Augustine was not cheating. He was reading the Bible he had, in the language he had it in. His 7 came to him off a Latin page, the way your 7 came to you off an English one. He wasn't hunting for a number that would work and grabbing whatever got him there. He opened his Bible and counted, and it said 7. And the whole intellectual world he lived in took this kind of numerical reading for granted. This is what serious people did with texts. It wasn't a party trick. It was scholarship. Judging a 4th century North African by 21st century text-critical standards is its own kind of error and a cheaper one than anything he ever did. This is a correction. It is not a prosecution. But here's where it stops being about Augustine being wrong, because that's not the problem. The problem is what he does next. In the same passage, the same one, a few lines down, Augustine gives a second explanation, a completely different one. He notes that 153 is 3 50s plus 3. The 3 is for the Trinity. And 50, he says, is 7 times 7 with 1 added, because 7 times 7 is 49. 3 times 50 is 150, plus 3, 153. Two unrelated routes to the same number in the same passage from the same man. And he doesn't pause. He doesn't say, that's odd. Why does this number keep letting me in? He just offers both. Then Gregory the Great comes along, and Gregory starts from Augustine's exact same pair, 10 and 7. Perfect numbers, he says. Added, they make 17. And then Gregory multiplies. 17 times 3 for the perfection of faith in the Trinity is 51. 51 times 3 is 153. Augustine added. Gregory multiplied. Same two numbers, opposite operations, same destination. Then Cyril of Alexandria takes a third road entirely. 100 for the great number of Gentiles who'd be saved. 50 for the smaller number of Jews. 3 for the Trinity who saves them all. 100 plus 50 plus 3, 153. And then somebody does the thing that gives the whole game away. A later tradition keeps Cyril's arithmetic exactly, 153. Doesn't change a digit, and swaps out every single meaning. The 100 is now the married lay faithful. The 50 is now widows and people living continently later in life. The 3 is now the handful who stay lifelong virgins. Same 3 numbers, same sum, an entirely different theology. And the arithmetic didn't object. It never does. That's the thing. That's the whole thing. The numbers were never constraining the answer. You could pour anything into that sum and it would hold it, because a sum doesn't care what you mean by 100. So, add it up. Jerome pointed at a book that says something else and was written 70 years too late. Augustine needed a 7th gift the Hebrew doesn't have. Gregory took the same 2 numbers and multiplied instead of adding and landed in the same place. And Cyril's arithmetic cheerfully carried 2 unrelated theologies without complaining once. 4 brilliant men, 4 different answers, 1 number, sitting there, agreeing with all of them. That's what a puzzle box does to you. It gives you the feeling of being let in every single time, no matter what you dial. Now, there is one more, and it's different. Go to Ezekiel chapter 47. There's a vision. A river comes out from under the temple. It runs east, and it gets deeper, and it reaches the Dead Sea, the water nothing lives in. And when it touches that dead water, the water comes alive. And in verse 10, this: fishermen will stand beside it, from En-Gedi to En-Eglaim, spreading their nets. 2 place names. Hold on to them. In Hebrew, every letter carries a number. That's not mysticism, that's just how the alphabet works. It's how they wrote numbers. So, Gedi, 3 letters. Gimel is 3, Dalet is 4, Yod is 10. 3 plus 4 plus 10, 17. Now Eglayim, Ayin is 70, Gimel is 3, Lamed is 30, Yud is 10, Mim is 40. 70 plus 3 plus 30 plus 10 plus 40. 153, 17, and 153. And 153 is the 17th triangular number. 2 place names, 1 verse. In a vision about fishermen spreading nets on a shore where dead water came back to life. And they carry exactly the pair of numbers John's count needs. That proposal comes from a scholar named J.A. Emerton, and Richard Bauckham developed it at length. The final chapter of his book, The Testimony of the Beloved Disciple, called perhaps the most comprehensive study of this question in print. Bauckham argues from it that chapter 21, which people are always calling an appendix bolted onto a book that already ended, was part of the design all along. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe. This is what every video here does. One detail followed all the way down, including the parts where it doesn't go where you hoped. Because now I have to do the thing I've spent 15 minutes demanding of everyone else. Everything I just said about Augustine applies here too. Gematria is easy. Every Hebrew letter carries a number, which means every word in the Bible is also a number, which means with enough patience and enough words, you can find almost anything you go looking for. This is a minority proposal. It is not the consensus. And I'm not going to spend 15 minutes showing you that clever men find what they're looking for and then hand you a clever thing and tell you mine's different. What I'll say is this: it's the only one on the list you can check yourself. You don't have to trust me or Bauckham or Emerton. You can look up 5 Hebrew letters and add. That's not proof. It's just a better class of maybe. And the plainest reading is still sitting right there on the table, and it deserves saying out loud. Fishermen count their catch. That's what fishermen do. You haul in a net, you count what's in it, because that's your livelihood lying on the sand. Somebody counted. Somebody wrote it down. Maybe it's a number. Here's the picture I can't get out of my head. Imagine a combination lock. You dial 10, 7, and it opens. Someone else comes along and dials 17, 3, 3, and it opens. Someone else dials 153, and it opens. And then someone dials the exact same numbers, meaning completely different things by them, and it opens for them too. At some point, you have to stop admiring the combination and look at the lock. Because a lock that opens on every combination is not a lock. It never was. It's a hole with a dial on it. And here's the part that gets me. While everyone is crouched down at the lock, working the numbers, comparing solutions, publishing, the door beside it is standing open. It's been open the whole time. Nobody's looking at it. Because a door that's already open doesn't reward anybody for being clever. It just lets you in. Remember what I told you at the start. In the same sentence where John gives you the number, he writes one more thing, and nobody has ever tried to crack it. Here it is. John says the net was not torn. That's it. That's the detail. No arithmetic in it anywhere. And it only detonates if you know about the first time. Because this isn't the first miraculous catch. Back at the beginning, in Luke chapter 5, there's another night of catching nothing. Another impossible haul. Peter's there. The sons of Zebedee are there. And the nets begin to break. The boats begin to sink. There's so much that the vessels can't hold it, and they have to call for help, and it nearly goes wrong. That was the beginning. The nets broke. This is the end. The net holds. What changed between those 2 mornings isn't the size of the catch, it's the integrity of the net. And there's one more. It's the one that finishes me. The word John uses for the fire on that beach is anthrakia, a charcoal fire, a heap of burning coals. It appears exactly twice in the entire New Testament. Once in chapter 18, verse 18, a courtyard, Peter's standing there warming his hands, and 3 times he says he doesn't know him. And once in chapter 21, verse 9, a beach, where Jesus asks him 3 times whether he loves him. John had other words for fire. He used the rare one both times. Nobody argues about this. There's no scheme, no gematria, no triangular number. There's no commentary trying to unlock it, because there's no lock on it. It's just there. Same fire, same smell, same man. 3 questions for 3 denials. And it's been there the whole time, while we were counting fish. We wanted a code. I get it. A code rewards you for being clever. A code is safe, because a code doesn't ask you anything. But what's actually on that beach isn't a code, and it isn't for the clever. It's for the man who said the words he couldn't take back. Whatever you've said, beside whatever fire, the thing being offered here isn't a puzzle you have to be smart enough to open. It's breakfast. It's somebody asking you 3 times whether you love him. Somebody who already knows the answer and asks anyway because you needed to hear yourself say it out loud. That's not hidden. That's not encrypted. That's the least subtle thing in the chapter. We just walked past it because it was open. Here's what stays with me. Augustine and Jerome and Cyril and Gregory weren't frauds. They loved this text. They wanted it to be inexhaustible, and they went at it with everything they had, every tool their world gave them. And what they found tells you far more about them than it does about the fish. And I do exactly the same thing. I would rather solve a verse than be read by one, every time. Solving is safe. Solving is something I do to the text. Peter didn't get a number that morning. He got a question 3 times, and he had to answer out loud, which is so much harder. So, here's the number. The number Jerome explained by pointing at a book written 70 years too late. The number Augustine reached by way of a Greek translator's word for piety. The number Gregory multiplied his way into, and Cyril divided up, and a later hand emptied out and refilled with total strangers. The number 2 place names in Ezekiel happened to carry in a vision about dead water coming back to life. The number nobody has ever solved. 153. And underneath all of it, the whole time, unencrypted, a net that didn't tear, a fire that had burned once before, and a man being asked a question he'd earned the right never to be asked again. If you want more of this, subscribe. One detail, all the way down, wherever it actually goes. And here's where I'll leave you. The first time, the nets broke. The catch was real, and the vessels couldn't hold it, and it nearly sank them. The second time, after the worst thing Peter ever did, after the fire and the rooster and the weeping, the net held. Every kind of fish in it, and not one of them lost. You are the kind of fish that net was built to hold. Not because you solved anything, because it held.